Hello, thank you for joining me on a new conversation on Keep Talking. Now, Indian cinema, Indian films actually, both documentary and fiction features have had a couple of breakout years. Keeping this momentum going and joining a stellar lineup of films is Sabar Bonda. In this film, a young gay man mourns the death of his beloved father. As he goes through the motions of performing the religious rituals in his village, he reconnects with a childhood friend who offers him the promise of love again. It became the first Marathi film to be selected by the Sundance Film Festival in the competition section for the dramatic category. So that's fiction. And it then went on to become the first Indian film to actually win the Grand Jury Prize in this category for world cinema. It's quite an achievement, and I'm delighted to say that Rohan Kanawade, the filmmaker, writer, director, is talking to me today. Rohan, your film, which I didn't tell people, but I'm going to tell you because they've not probably seen it, is so moving and it's so hopeful, and I really enjoyed seeing it. And congratulations on this very, very well deserved
Thank you.
mega award.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I believe you've tattooed something. I heard.
Yes, Sundance. Yeah, this is the motive of Sundance. So, getting to Sundance was like a dream, right? And when we were there, my editor actually did it first because he was like, Anadi Atale is the editor, and he was like, this is a milestone. And I was like, yeah, it is. But my partner, like, you're not getting any more tattoos. He's been telling that to me for years. And then the next day, we won the award, and that's when I was like, now even I have to get it done because it's a really milestone now. And then my partner, okay, yeah, let's do it. Exactly.
You're living the dream, no, Rohan? It's quite incredible to have spent time as an independent filmmaker. What is this? How did Sabar Bonda come together for you?
So I've been making shorts for a while. I studied interior designing, but then in 2007 I started exploring filmmaking, and it took me a while
To transition.
Yeah, it transitioned, but also to hone yourself, hone the craft, and so it took me a while. And my short films started going to the festivals, and after every short film I was writing feature, and then nothing happened with those feature. So when I was finally thinking about this story, which is actually the inspired by my experience of grieving my father in my ancestral village, which happened in 2016. But in 2020 I started thinking about that idea more, and it was like I was thinking of it on and off, but in 2020 it was like those thoughts and the images, they were like too many, and finally that made me sit down and now start write. And that's when I started writing without any expectation, actually, because I was like, whenever I was writing earlier feature scripts, I used to be like, okay, I will do it. I mean, I'm gonna find finance and this and that, and I used to be so confident, but nothing happened. So this time I was like, I'll just write it for myself because I'm feeling nice, and by writing this script, it's giving me that chance to reimagine that whole period, which I wanted to do it anyways.
So was it cathartic in a sense?
Not really, because just the seed is my experience, right?
Yeah.
Like 90% story, which is completely fiction. So
is your imagination, is what you've imagined.
So, but it was making me feel happy. So that's when I that's why I was writing it, and I finished it. But then for 3 months I didn't show it to anyone. So then I actually read it to one of my friends finally, because I was like, there's no point keeping it with me anymore. I mean, if I want to do something, I have to share it. So I shared it with one of my friends, and he liked it. That's when I started sharing it with more people. And after that, I shared it with my main producer, Neeraj Churi. And when he read it, he liked it, and he was like, let's do it. But I told him, but it's going to be a very long journey, because the kind of movie we want, the how we want to make it, that is going to be a challenge. And but he was okay with it because he loved it. And that's when the journey started. And because I'm not a trained filmmaker, what I thought was, if we start submitting the script to labs and market, one thing will happen, that I'll get a little bit of mentorship from professionals. That will happen. The other
Which is good, which you wanted.
And that other thing was that film will get visibility, which I wanted since the beginning. I told him that we have to get it, get to the international market and sales agents. We need to create a buzz about the film. So
Right from the script stage, when you're actually even looking to raise funds. How did you become so shrewd?
I mean, I've been.
But you've understood how it works.
So the thing is, like, I've been watching all the interviews of filmmakers all the time. That was actually my film school, and that's how I learned many things. And so that's what we started doing, and thankfully we got selected at NFDC, Venice Biennale College Cinema, Venice Gap Financing Market, so many big platforms. And that's how many people got to know about the film. And there were like some sales agents, international sales agents, they started following us. So that's how we created that
interest,
buzz,
and
interest,
buzz,
everything.
I've seen the film, which I'm quite lucky and privileged to have been able to see it. And it's interesting to me that I find that it is a story about, for me, it was about a young man coming to terms with the loss and the grief that comes with losing a very beloved parent. He was lucky in that movie, and I think you have been, and so have I, to have parents who have been loving, who have allowed us to be ourselves, right? And for me, that is what connected. And then I was quite happy that in that journey of grief and loss, he actually ends up discovering and finding something else, which in your story is love. And that hope is perhaps what really worked the most for me. All of it was lovely, very moving, very rooted. But the hope that it's possible for people to find love, to be together, or at least, for some time, that was very striking.
That was the whole point, right? Like, if you keep, most queer films you see, there's mostly tragedy, right? Either they will separate, or someone will die, or something will happen. But and I feel that is one of the reasons that people think that if queer life is sad, but that's not the thing. And in my life, when I got acceptance from my parents, my father was a driver, my mom is illiterate, and they accepted me without any drama. Literally, when I told them, and they just said, it's okay.
What did you say?
When I told them why I don't want to get married.
What did you say? Use the language?
No, I didn't say anything. But I didn't say anything. Like, with my father, actually, I showed the picture of one of the exes, because of whom I was very sad. He understood that something is wrong, and he said, what's happened? Why are you like this? I've been seeing you. And I said, oh, you won't understand. And I said that because the kind of coming out stories that I had heard, which were bad, so I had impressions of those. So I was always scared to come out. So I was like, pata nahi when I will tell them how they will react. And then I used to also think about, oh, my mom is just illiterate. My dad, he couldn't even finish his schooling, and he's a driver.
So how will they deal with it? That was your fear.
Yeah, and will they even understand or anything? And I actually told my father, I don't think you'll understand. And he said, but at least try, so that I'll understand what is going on, and then only I will know if I can help you or no, right? Without that, I will not know what to do. And I was like, okay. But I was so shattered at that time, so I was like also so scared. So I didn't say actually anything. I just showed him the picture, and he said,
picture of you with your ex-boyfriend.
And he said, he's your friend? Or like, who's he? And I said, no, he's more than a friend. And he understood, and he's like, okay. And then I said he couldn't come out to his family, that's why he got married to a woman. I don't want to do that.
This is there in the film as well, in Sabar
Yeah.
Bonda. Yeah.
And he said, okay, you know about yourself, that's most important. So good, I mean, that's enough.
What makes you think that your parents had this kind of very accepting approach? Because you didn't expect them to have it and they surprised you. What do you think made them so accepting?
No, I think, this is, this is what also I've been telling people, that, wisdom is something that you don't get with the education. It's there in the person. Like the story that, grandfather says in the film, how Anand's parents got married, is actually the story of how my parents got married. So, so when I heard that story, I knew my father had that wisdom since beginning. It didn't happen suddenly that he accepted me when I came out to him. He was always that kind of a person, understanding person. So it wasn't a surprise actually, but I was scared because, because of all that impression. And when I told my mother also, I was not sure how she will react.
He didn't tell her?
No. So I was not too sure how she will react to it. And when I told her, she was like, yeah, that's fine. Why that? Like, during the pandemic, initial days, my mom had high blood pressure. She, behosh ho gayi thi. And then we had to take her to the hospital and all. And there was this one doctor they didn't allow everyone to go inside, right? So my partner went inside with my mom and he was explaining everything. And then, my mom is talking to the doctor in Marathi. And when doctor is talking to my partner, he's talking in English. He got confused, like, what is this happening? And then he was like, who are you? Then he said, okay, I'm the partner of, her son. I'm like, where is he? I mean, like, then he was like, partner meaning what? And then he told the doctor, and then doctor suddenly had some doubt, and he was like, you guys just go out, I want to talk to her. And then we were like, okay. And then my partner came out and he was talking to my mom. And after that, he asked us to come in, and then he said, oh, I just wanted to know if your mother is worried because her son is gay and living with another man, and that is why she, that blood pressure. But when I asked her if she's worried, she said, no, I am not worried at all. And that's when I use that in the film also, when Anand asks mom. So she is like, I know, I'm quite happy. So
you're lucky.
No, this is what
wonderful parents.
No, I mean, that's what I say, I am lucky to have this kind of parents. I mean, I also know there is struggle for some people, but what is happening that in most films they are only showing struggle. But there is this side also, and I know so many my other friends who didn't have to struggle like that. And I was like, when are we going to see this side? Because when we'll see this side, that's when things will change for a few people. I mean, maybe hopefully that will give some inspiration or hope or courage to some parents to accept their kids.
So as a writer director, your first feature, Sabar Bonda, is it comes from your personal experience, right? It like you said, 90% of the story is what you imagine, but the theme and the underlying philosophy or outlook comes from your own lived experience. Do you see work you do subsequently all having to come from your own experience, or the first film ends up being, for an author, the first film ends up being so personal?
I don't know, like, the feature that I wrote before, they were not my personal experiences. Okay. It just, this happened to be. But again, it's personal, it's just an inspiration. The whole film is not what I experienced. So at the end of the day, you are fictionalizing it, so it's not really a autobiography also. So, and I think, I mean, I do get inspired from the real life events that happen around me or maybe in my life. That's what I mean, that's how you get inspiration, right? So yeah, of course, I mean, the film that I will make next will be different. Like, I've been saying this also, like, I want to make a film with dinosaurs, so that's not my personal experience. Or I want to make a horror.
Please do not get another Jurassic Park.
I love dinosaurs, so I don't know.
So it has to be something different. It cannot be Jurassic
and
Park.
And also,
Park,
like how dinosaurs will come to Mumbai, how. So that
is
thing,
the challenge.
right?
That's the creative challenge.
So that, and even horror. I love horror, but of course not the kind of horror that people make here. I want to make my own thing, but I don't know. So
What do you mean by your own kind of horror?
I mean, the kind of horror movies that I like, I mean, you know, not always something with a ghost only, you know. I mean, now we've been seeing that there are like, I really love Tumbar. That was so different, you know, something like that, which is so different, not the typical horror film. So something like that. So whenever I get the idea for that, I'll write that. So I want to make different kind of films, and also, you know, the story dictates you the treatment. So the film with the horror film, or maybe the film with dinosaur, will look or feel completely different. So that also I like to do all the time, and that is one of the reasons I take time to write, because when you sit with those ideas and images, slowly when you start seeing images, you know what is the tone of this story, and that's when you are writing it, you have to write it with that tone, so when the readers are reading it, they understand what kind of film it is. So
in Sabar Bonda, the love story, the boy who's lost his father is Anand, and Balya is his childhood friend, and perhaps lover, somebody who he discovered his sexuality with, perhaps. Both of them are dealing with their life in a very, very like sharp contrast. Anand has a lot of anger, perhaps from grief of the loss of the father, perhaps from the fact that his boyfriend or lover went and got married because he gave into parents' pressures. Balya, on the other hand, has no outlet for no expression, and yet seems more chilled out. What explains this contrast, and is it created by you for dramatic effect? How does this come about?
No, I mean,
because you would think that Balya has very little hope, right? He's living in a village where people are not going to let him be himself, where things are pretty close, everybody knows what everyone is doing. Mumbai gives you a certain anonymity.
No, I mean,
and yet he's the more chilled out guy.
Yeah, but because he doesn't have that kind of a pressure, right? Like, because Anand is grieving, so his situation is completely different. Bhai is not grieving. I mean, and one thing that really is working for him is that he's a farmer, so the girls are rejecting him. So he doesn't have to, and he doesn't have to do anything. I mean, like, without saying anything, he's just getting to, you know, live singlehood life, and so he's like, he doesn't have any pressure other than like his parents want him to, they want that, you know, to happen for him, but other than, he doesn't have any other pressure. So and the fact that his friend who's come after a long time, and that he will now get to meet him and at least spend some time, that is a happy thing for him, and so he wants to
unexpected bonus in that sense.
And that was the idea, right? Like, you know, when I was writing the story, I didn't have Baya's character, and I was thinking about it, why if Baya and Anand are of same ages, we know why Anand is not married, but why this guy is not married, even if he's of same age. And when I was doing that research, that's when my mom told me that, you know, like, farmers are not getting bride because of the skewed sex ratio, and the girls only want the city-based husbands, or someone who has
and drought.
Office
Today,
job.
Drought is a big issue, so nobody wants to be in a village where water is a big problem.
So then I was like, oh, that's an interesting thing. I mean, I'm sure there are gay men in farmer community as well, and what if this situation helps this gay farmer to stay unmarried, and what if then he meets his childhood friend who comes to the village for the 10-day mourning, and that's when I was like, this is very interesting thing, and that's when I had those two characters. So I mean, of course, I mean, that's how the drama is there, but you don't do these things for the dramatic purpose only, because I thought by using these aspects, you are also showing the current situation and the reality. So that was the reason these things are there in the film.
Also, you know, there is a love-making scene which is in the open, which I find really interesting, because it makes complete sense. Where would you get privacy in a village? I would assume, where, you know, you can't go and lock yourself and stay together in a room or a house. So the open nature is where you will find privacy. I find that visually and thematically very interesting.
Right.
Also, it is about love and love making being the most natural thing.
Yeah,
Is that also a part of it?
This is actually what used to happen is, like, in Mumbai, when on dating apps, people first question is, do you have place? Right. And whenever I used to go to the village, I'm like, yaar, yahan pe to kitna open sab hai. I mean, do people like go outdoor and do things? How it happens? So that image was something that made me curious, and I wanted to know about it, and that's when I was like, oh, why can't I just use it? And of course I know, like, people do go out, in the nature, in the village, and I have few friends, I mean, and I spoke to them, so this happens. So I was like, oh, this is interesting, let me use that. And I mean, of course, I mean, they are spending time outside the village in the forest, so that's where that's the place that they can get.
I just thought visually that's a lovely way of saying that falling in love making, all of that is in nature. It is natural. I also, if you've seen All We Imagine Is Light, Payal, also, this Hindu Muslim love story. I mean, you don't, it is natural, and even there are practical reasons as a result of which the love making happens in the open. But I think underlying it is this lovely thought that it is natural. And where else but in nature. So what are the plans for this movie, Rohan, now, for people to get to see it, because you won this really big award? Are you going to other festivals?
Yes, so we have a screening at New Directors New Films, which is organized by MoMA and Film at Lincoln Center. So we have 2 screenings, which is next month. Then after, there are more festival which I can't talk about right now, because they have not announced it officially. But so there is a nice, interesting lineup of the festivals as well. And
obviously your victory at Sundance will make you very sought after, and all eyes will be on you, right, as the film progresses.
That's a good thing, right? Like, at least because of this, film will travel all over, which was one of the thought when I shared the script with the producer, right? This is what I wanted, and because of this award, now film will travel, which is a good thing. And another good thing that happened, which I posted on my Instagram as well, that film is getting distributed in Germany, Austria and Switzerland. And
so a few European countries. Okay.
So that has started. Slowly it will spread, and hopefully, and of course, we want to get it released in India. And
आम्हाला पण बघायचं आहे.
Exactly. And I really want people to experience the film the international audience experienced in Sundance in the theater. So I am just hopeful that we can achieve that in India as well.
But you're hopeful, but are you realistic? Do you see it happening?
Even when I was making short films, I used to tell my DOPs, we have to frame for the big screen, not for the laptops. And because I know so many filmmakers who, ye to phone pe dekha jayega, and I was like, no. So I always make films thinking of big screen. So that's the highest that's the priority. So I'm hopeful, and I think it will. It can. I mean, after All We Imagine and everything, I mean, there's hope, right? So
absolutely.
I mean,
what were some of the reactions you got at Sundance to the film? I mean, obviously they liked it, and obviously the jury loved it. But what is some of the things that you heard that surprised you, or that intrigued you, or that was unexpected?
I think most of the thing that we heard was how universal it was. So on the story level, that was the thing that we got, that everyone
that's so rooted in rural Maharashtra.
Even though it was a Maharashtrian story, the international audience who's not Indian, like, and at Sundance, the audience is so diverse. Everyone from all over the world comes to Sundance, right? So they were like completely different audience, global audience, and they all connected with the story. That was something we somehow knew, because from script level only that was happening. Even the sales agent was saying the same thing. So that something that happened. But what they also were happy about was, they were happy that it was a hopeful and they all loved the mother. And many people said, whenever mother was there, we were so happy.
And the mother actually didn't say too many things,
Yeah.
you didn't make her declaim, like you
Yeah.
didn't give her like lots of lines to say and make some points.
Yeah. No, I was always, see, one of the things that when I write, I was like, if a real person has to be in this kind of a situation or in this scene, how he or she will react or say. Like when I was writing this story, I was thinking about my mother all the time. If Anand is asking this question, how would my mother will actually answer that? And that's how I was writing. So I could write something that makes it more human and more real. So that's what I was trying all the time. And hopefully I hope that worked, because many people also said it looked very real, it felt very real, and that is what we wanted. Because of the film or the story this quiet, it had to be very real so that people can connect with it. So that was there. But one of the other things that we were surprised with was actually people really loved the sound design. Winning and the jury citation, what they said was a big surprise. And we never thought we will get to experience this moment. So and actually jury was actually meeting me throughout the festival, and they kept saying that how much they loved the film, how much they loved the film, and I was like, oh, okay. and even a programming committee at Sundance, since first day when I was there for the opening night party and all that, I was meeting the programmers, and everyone had one thing to say similar: this is a very special film. I'm like, why everyone is saying the same thing? I mean, so these were the surprises that and then when you're making your new first film, and then you don't know what films are there, so you're always nervous. But then when I saw the audience's reaction and everything, and people were coming to us and talking, and it was not always the questions, it was just the experience, how they felt. And this is what we wanted, like, that we wanted that the film to give audience a warm hug, and many of them even said that. So that was a surprise, that some people actually said what we had on our mind when we were making it. So that was a surprise. So
I talked about the fact that Indian cinema has had a breakout moment in the past couple of years, but it's very clear that the kind of films that have had this breakout moment are not our mainstream films, right? You want to talk about this segregation? Is independent cinema today the parallel cinema of the 70s and 80s? How should one understand independent cinema? Because that's what your movie is being called. That's what All We Imagined As Light, Girls Will Be Girls, all these movies. Even the documentaries.
Yeah, I mean, independent cinema is because the filmmaker can take risk, can tell bold stories, and the treatment that they want to give the film, or the way they want to tell.
And they can do this because the money is coming from
like for us, we didn't get any grant, but my producers, they were like, okay, I mean, we will make it on our own, because the kind of freedom I wanted, like, there is no background music in the film. So you will not get that when you go to the studios, right? Like,
how can you not
without the background music? So then the film, the camera work it's just still images and very long takes, and
it's quite static in that sense.
But
it also sort of reflects that natural rhythm in a way, of that
Exactly. So this we wanted this freedom to just tell this story the way we want to, and because of this, the independent cinema looks and feels so different than what mainstream is doing, and that is one of the reason that now that independent cinema is going global. And
so for instance, there was there was some discussion about, are these films too international? It's not really. No, is the filmmaking too international?
I don't think so.
The grammar,
No, it's I think it's just because the storytelling feels different for the audience. That's why they just feel, it is not Indian. But what is Indian? How do you?
What can be more Indian than Sabar Bonda?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, everything that you see. I mean, so for this, I would say this is my own experience. I had this experience in India, in the slum of Mumbai, in my village, whenever I was spending my holidays. So I mean, it's Indian. I mean, what else do you want? I mean, and also one of the reason that I also incorporated the culture was I thought that this story gives me that space to make this film Indian. because you see the specific mourning culture that
The
even
death
for,
rituals.
yeah, and for me it was first time when my
Yeah.
father passed away, when my relatives started telling me that I have to do all of it. I'm like, huh?
Did you go bald? Did you shave your
Yeah,
head?
yeah,
Did
yeah,
you
I had to,
mundan?
and I had to do it for my mother
Yeah.
because she wanted it to,
Yeah.
for me
Yeah.
to do it, and then there was no point to upset people at that time.
Yeah. You just go with the flow also,
Yeah,
right? You
exactly.
don't want to hurt anybody
Exactly.
else.
And what happens is, if your father is alive, you don't go for the funeral, and most of our relatives stay in the village. So whenever there was a death, my father used to travel. So I never actually knew about all these rituals. So when my father passed, and when I was there, suddenly when they told me that you can't wear slippers, I was like, what is this happening? I was like, oh, I didn't know all of this. So that was also shock for me. And then that's when I was like, it's interesting. I mean, there is some thought behind those things, like, uh, people, the relatives come to meet you during this time, right? So the reason you should not wear the slippers is because of that reason. If you are not wearing slippers, you will not go out, so you will be at home. Same reason, if you are not going out, so you don't have to wear cap. And if you are just staying at home, you don't have to eat so much, so you just have this much meal. So these are the reason these rituals are, but people don't know about it. So I thought this is interesting, I'll just use it, and this will be this will show culture of that specific region, because even if you travel like 20 kilometers away from this village, culture, the customs change.
So this kind of cinema, independent cinema, where you do not have to follow the formulas that mainstream movies are following, as a result of which they get bigger funding, as a result of which they need to reach bigger audiences. It's liberating, right? But is there a big enough audience for this cinema in India? What are you hearing, because you now belong to this community?
I think there is audience. I mean, for that matter, I would tell you that I saw All of Imagine as like twice in the theater. On weekdays, afternoon, more than half theater was full.
Okay.
So there is audience who wants to watch, and after pandemic, people are watching diverse stories and different cinema, and they want.
So
to
it's
watch
not
something
about the audience. It is about the
availability of the film. So I mean, when Suchi's Girls Will Be Girls came on Amazon, so many people saw it. So people want to watch good films if they are available to them. So I think I don't think people don't want to watch.
But all the films that we've mentioned, including yours, are films that have got great international recognition. Let us say you had not won an award. Would your film then would it then manage to get an audience here? Because currently now there's also that intrigue, right?
No, but this is what it is. No, now because we got the award, now there is at least that hope that we'll get to the theaters, and if that starts happening, more and more independent films will get that chance in future. That's the whole idea.
So the festival circuit is very important for the survival and for the success of an independent film.
And also it's at least it puts spotlight now, because of all the our independent films are going to big festivals now. Even the regular audience is taking note of it, so they are curious about those films. So at least now they want to watch them. So that's how I think it will help the few other filmmakers who want to make their films. Hopefully, because of all of this, there will be producers who would want to support some other independent filmmakers, and that's how the films, more and more independent films will be made and will be seen by the world and the audience. So I think
you see this as the path forward for you.
I think that's
you don't see yourself trying. Somebody comes and says, "Hey, come on now, make a big film." We can see what a talented, accomplished filmmaker you are.
I mean, that even my friends are telling, like, now make a film with songs and dance. I mean, I do love songs and dance. I do watch all kind of films. I just don't know if I will be able to make that kind of a film, but you never know. I mean, it just what idea makes you interested at that moment.
So Rohan, you talked about the way you visualize Sabar Bonda. I've seen one of your short films, which is Khidki. There's a very strong visual look, design, idea that you have. Khidki was high contrast, black and white, and you're using the visuals are being used in a way that enhances the story and the storytelling. How difficult is it to create unique and memorable visuals today? Because we are there's a surfeit of images, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, wherever, all social media, advertising. This is a feat of images. And also, unlike previously, amateurs are now, we have the tools to make average images. So what's the challenge for a director?
So one thing is, at least for me, that I was good at drawing all the time.
Interior design, you said.
Yeah, that I did. And since my childhood, I was always interested in the film projector, so the images, and so I was always interested in that. And because of my drawing and because of my interior designing course, I can visualize space and everything. So what I usually do is, when I have all my locations, so I have the space where each scene will be shot. So I take the time before the shoot to pre-visualize the whole film, and I do my storyboard. I write each.
You have a storyboard.
Yeah. So even for Sabar Bonda, 90% film is what I drew on the paper. Even Khidki, entire film Khidki is exactly what I.
But Khidki is still, it's so confined locationally that I can understand. But for Sabar Bonda,
because I had the locations, right?
Yeah.
So I had all the locations, and I used to spend time at that location to understand the space, and that's when at home I used to just start making images, and so that it helps me, because on the shooting day I don't have to struggle. Okay, how do I set up this scene? What is the angle or what? So I already have done it, and I discussed the storyboard with my DOP for 2 months, and that's what we shot. So everyone knew what we are going to do on that day.
So you're saying a lot of effort and hard work goes into crafting an image, and how challenging is this when everybody is creating images or trying to create images, and images have lost their value in a way, right?
Exactly. Or not only the images, right? Like for me, it was also important how the image looks. So we also used vintage lenses, Russian vintage lenses, Lomo Illumina, because I wanted that texture, soft texture, because the today's films look so sharp, and I just don't like that. I mean, I can't shoot on film because it's expensive, so at least there is some tools that I can use to make images look interesting. That's when my DOP Vikas suggested we should use these lenses, and then we did the test, and I really loved. And also we did the test shoot, and we graded the images, because I wanted a certain look to the film. I wanted to use lots of brown, so we did the color grading. So Siddharth Mehr, who's one of the producers as well, he designed the look for the film, and we used that during the shoot. But what happens for me mostly is that during the storyboard, I get lot of time to think about that one image, right? And that's when I can visualize, think, draw, and see if it's interesting or no. So that's when I actually work on the language, and
the visual language.
Yeah, even the frame. I mean, exactly the first frame of the film is there in the storyboard. So, like that, everything. So even if, I mean, for some scenes we had to change the location at the last moment, but because I had my storyboard, I could build on it, right? I was not completely clueless how to shoot the scene, but I could build on it. And in a way, I thought, when I was making the storyboard, it was actually, I was writing another draft of the film, but in the images, with the images. So, and it also took me 3 months too, because it was all handmade.
And then
drawings.
Does the editing become easier?
It
Not really,
easier,
right? The editing is still
because,
a completely
because,
journey on its own.
Yeah, because it's a lot.
Yeah.
Most of the scenes are shot by only through one angle, right? So, and they're long takes. So editor had to decide where the scene starts, where it ends, and it also he did some things in the film which were not in the script. So those were the interesting. That is why that process was also interesting. What Anadi did in some scenes was really interesting, and how he then saw it, and how he constructed that on the edit table was also interesting, which also helped me to understand that next time when I'm writing, I have to how to simplify on paper so that you don't struggle during the edit.
Do you feel that your film is creating a new conversation about the queer community and queer love stories or stories, as opposed to the stuff that's already been done in India so far?
But I should tell you this, that there are so many other Indian filmmakers who are making queer stories that and they're showing those films at Kashish Film Festival.
Yeah.
So if you see some of those stories, they are actually different. There are filmmakers who are telling different kind of queer experiences as well. So I just hope that more and more people get that chance to share.
When the marriage equality petitions were being read out, the government of India told the court that this is an elitist issue, right? I mean, I was actually looking for, the petitions merely reflect urban elitist views. It cannot be considered, it cannot be compared with the appropriate legislature, which reflects the views and voices of a far wider spectrum and expands across the country. I think Sabar Bonda is a statement that disproves this, isn't it?
No, and you know what? This was important because I remember even before when I came out to my father, I went to one of the gay parties with my friends, and suddenly I see a guy from my locality who was an electrician working on one of the lights, and I was like, what is he doing here? And I got so scared, and throughout the party I was hiding from him. At the end of the day, he saw me.
Sounds like a film scene. Yeah.
At the end of the day, he saw me, and 2 days later when I was at the bus stop, he came there. He stood behind me, and then suddenly he started asking the questions, and he was like, what were you doing there? And I was like, so I just said that I was there with my friends partying. And he said, that place is not for us, it's for the rich people. So people, I don't know, for some reason have that thought that being gay or anything is for the rich people or the upper class or the city people. I don't know why. And that was one of the reason I wanted to take that chance to show that, sexuality is natural and it's a human thing. And
it's not
exactly
for A class or B class.
Exactly.
Or caste. All these
and one of the other things, like, also the queer people in rural areas are also, they don't believe in that two men or two women can stay together. Like few years back, one of the organization, Gay Bombay, they called me and my partner and said, can you guys make a video of, you two, how you met and you've been staying together for so many years. I was like, why you want that? And that's when they said, there are so many queer people in the rural areas. They don't know that, two men or two women can stay together, and most of them, they get married, and then what happens after the marriage. So at least, through these videos, we can just show
there is another option. You have another option if you could go for it.
So and when I was talking to some of my friends in my ancestral village, around my ancestral village, even they said for most people it is just being gay means just having sex and that's it. That is,
but
what
not a full life.
Yeah, that's what even Baya says in the film. So that's what their idea is. So that was one of the reasons to make this film and have this urban, and even in urban it's like lower class, and in rural area which is very small, where
working class,
and this man who's just does odd jobs, sells milks, to show that was important.
It's an important film. It's a lovely story. It's a heartwarming film, and for that, thank you, Rohan, and congratulations for making India's first Grand Jury Award winning film at the Sundance Film Festival. I hope we all get to see it, and then once you see it, you have to go back and watch this conversation again.
Yeah, but please, whenever the film releases, make sure you go to the theaters and watch it, because that's how more and more independent films will get released, and more people can watch diverse cinema. So that's important, that when it releases, people go and watch the film
in the theaters.
In the theater, yeah.
Thank you, Rohan. It was lovely. I hope we'll keep talking.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.